Okay, everybody, this is going to be an update. I just did an update a few minutes ago about this tank, and I made an offhand comment about the cyanobacteria, and I'm probably going to leave the other video up. In fact, I might even just link this one to it, or even just make it into one video and just do the first and second part, because I am certainly not afraid to show you my mistakes and my learning process, and I just learned a whole lot. Very, very interesting little 10 minutes worth of reading I just did. At any rate, the blue-green algae in here, as it's called, is not algae, it's a cyanobacteria. And when I was talking about this tank, and I was just on a update a few minutes ago, and I was talking about it being bacteria, not algae, so I was, in talking about the control of it, I mentioned how I didn't think your light cycle made any impact on it since it's bacteria and not light. I mean, not plants. Now, I didn't get into researching exactly what the definition of cyanobacteria is versus regular bacteria. That may have something to do with bacteria that actually photosynthesizes similar to a plant or something. I'm not sure about that, but I did find out that I was very wrong about my statement about your light not making a difference about this cyanobacteria. But what I found out was really interesting because it just made so much more sense, and it made this tank come together for me and why I have this problem keep recurring. So here it is. First of all, a little bit about plants and how they work as far as PAR and photosynthesis. You need a certain spectrum of light in order for plants to thrive, and there's two spikes within that spectrum that falls to the most amount of light spectrum that they need, and this is a big spike in the red spectrum and it's a big spike in the blue spectrum, and all the stuff in the middle, all of the yellows and greens and stuff like that, generally don't get used by the plant. That's why the plants appear to be yellow and green. The light they're not using reflects off and shines into our eyeballs, and we see it as green plants. All the other light is being used by the plant, and that's why we don't see those colors come back. So the cyanobacteria that we're talking about here actually thrives on, see, there's a good example of it right there. It thrives on that, I'll call it waste light, the light that the plants don't really use. Now, if you're dealing with a higher quality light, the chances are you won't have as much issue with this. Here's where it gets a little bit confusing and complicated. You got to kind of understand a little bit about how light works. If you think about mixing colors of paint, or colors of light, you mix all the colors and you get white or you get black or whatever. The way you come up with a color temperature for Kelvin, say a 6500 degree color temperature, it's not always the same recipe, if you will, of what different spectrums they blend together to come up with that white light. So if you're using a lower quality light, such as my cheap repurposed outdoor $10 LEDs, for a perfect example, you wind up with really crappy quality light, and there's a bunch of junky yellow and green spectrums in there making this the 6500K that it claims. I don't have a spectrometer. I can't verify that. I just have enough experience with lights, and I'm pretty confident that it says 6500K. That looks close enough to me. But again, how do they get that 6500K? What spectrums do they blend together is the key. A higher quality one, especially one that's purpose-built for this device, or to be on an aquarium, will deliberately avoid those middle-of-the-road yellows and greens to avoid this very problem, because they're designed for this application. So when I read all of that, it just made so much sense, and I really suddenly, immediately realized these lights have got to go. I've got to just bite the bullet. As much as I like the low-budget DIY stuff, I'm really just going to have to put some real lights on here. But an important point to remember about that is when you're using fluorescent lights, even if you're using a higher quality fluorescent light, and in this case, this unit has a 10,000K bulb, whereas this unit back here actually has a 6,700K bulb as well. So as time goes on, these bulbs degrade, and with fluorescent bulbs, it's the on-off cycle that makes them degrade more rapidly. So if you're doing a 14-hour light cycle or a 6-hour light cycle, you're still going to get about the same amount of time, because it's that on and off twice a day is going to have more of an impact than being on for 6 or 8 or 10 hours a day. But your fluorescent lights do degrade over time, and I generally don't like to use them more than a year. I think they're pretty much done at that point. You probably, if you've got higher lighting needs, you probably should go even less time than that. But I'm not going to get into all that right now. Just really, again, interesting stuff. I started doing some reading. I made an offhand comment, and you know, I thought, you know what? I just said that. I threw that out there. Let me go double check and make sure I didn't just say something stupid. And I did. Not necessarily stupid. You know, I didn't know. I made an assumption. I thought that it's not a plant, and therefore it doesn't use light. But that's my learning process. I just found something out, and hopefully I just shared something with you, and maybe you now know something that neither of us knew a few minutes ago. So there you go, and that again is what's going on with that green stuff. That is not algae, and there are ways to treat for it. Just look up blue-green slime, or you look at the first part of this video where I talk about it.
Everybody, it's going to be another update video. I've been watching this tank here closely. If you remember, if you've been following along, watching my videos, it's been a while since I've done anything on this. This is my Crebensis tank. It's 20 gallon long, open top. Well, I guess you figured that part out. I had what I thought was a really bad algae problem in this tank, and after months of trying to deal with it and it just getting worse and worse, I finally found out that what it was is bacteria, not algae. So I actually treated the tank for the bacteria. There's a product that you can treat for green slime, and it worked very well. I started from a really heavy infestation, so I did a double treatment. You know, I did a treatment, did a water change, and then did the treatment again, and it took care of everything. But it's been about a month now, maybe 6 weeks, and I mean, there's obviously the clearest example right there. You can see this stuff is just coming back. So I obviously didn't get it all. There's a lot of it on that too. It's harmless to the fish. It's no big deal. It just makes the tank look ugly. I would imagine if I let it get too bad or I did anything too radical to it, it might change the oxygen levels in the tank or something like that. I never had any issue with it. So I'm not concerned about it. It just doesn't look very good. So I need to do a water change on this tank anyway. You can see all the biofilm sort of collecting on the surface. It's just been a while since I've done a lot of maintenance on this tank. And then with my water system the way it is right now, I'm not really going to be able to do anything until I get that sorted out. So hopefully by tomorrow I'll be able to start doing stuff with my water again. In the meantime, I just wanted to do an update about that green stuff in there. I know some other people might have issues with it, and wonder what it is and wonder why they've got this algae that they just can't get out of their tank. And that is why. That's not algae. That is actually bacteria. As far as I know, it also is not affected by your light cycle. So keeping the lights turned on for less time during the day, while that might be an effective way to keep algae under control, I really don't believe that it will have any impact on this. This is not a plant. It is bacteria. It just looks like green carpet algae or something. So let me get my ducks in a row here for a few days and get my water sorted out and get a couple other tanks sorted out. Again, this just looks ugly. It's not anything dangerous, but it looks ugly and I don't like it there. So we are going to be getting that out of there, and I'm going to be doing another treatment on that here pretty soon. So I'll walk you through that whole process and everything I have to do to treat for that as well. So stay tuned, and that was your update on my Crebensis tank. There's probably going to be plenty more to come today.